Who is Ibrahim Traoré? Who shocked Western world? Why the West fears Ibrahim Traoré and wants him gone. A story of African resistance. If you believe in telling Africa's stories the right way, then like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support means the world to us. In the heart of West Africa lies Burkina Faso, a landlocked country with a proud heritage, but a history marred by political instability and colonial legacy. Formerly called Upper Volta under French rule, the nation gained independence in 1960. But what followed were decades of coup, corruption, and unrest. Burkina Faso was no stranger to political turbulence. After independence, the country witnessed a series of military takeovers, with leaders rising and falling at a dizzying pace. The most iconic among them was Captain Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary Marxist leader who seized power in 1983 and sought to turn the country into a self-reliant anti-imperialist state. Sankara changed the country's name from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, meaning land of upright people, and remains a symbol of courage and resistance. But Sankara's assassination in 1987 marked the end of an era. By the early 2000s, Burkina Faso was at a crossroads. Terrorist insurgencies from the Sahel ravaged rural areas. Jihadist groups like Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, AQIM, and ISIS-affiliated cells expanded influence in the north and east. With over 40% of the country effectively under militant control by 2022, people began to question, where is leadership? Where is security? Burkina Faso's population, especially its youth, grew increasingly disillusioned. Unemployment soared, resources were scarce, and basic needs went unmet. People lost faith in government institutions and foreign interventions that seemed more interested in extracting resources than solving local problems. Amid this despair, young men and women began looking inward for answers. They turned to community, solidarity, cultural pride, and traditional resilience to cope. And among those born into this atmosphere of resilience and resistance was a boy named Ibrahim Traoré. As external actors scrambled for control, Burkina Faso's citizens hungered for autonomy. They saw their minerals taken, their land ignored, and their cries for peace drowned by geopolitics. This climate laid the foundation for a new breed of leader to emerge, one who could rise from within and speak with the voice of the people. That hope would later find expression in the quiet resolve of a young military captain. The boy from Bondokouy, early life and education. Born in March 1988 in the modest commune of Bondokouy in western Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré came from humble roots. His parents were farmers, and his upbringing was steeped in simplicity and discipline. Like many Burkinabe children, he experienced the realities of rural hardship, long walks to school, scarce resources, and deep reverence for elders. On Ibrahim's early years revealed a spark, an intellect sharpened by curiosity. He often borrowed books from teachers and asked questions far beyond his age. Friends recall a boy who could lead a game of soccer 1 minute and discuss history the next. But Ibrahim wasn't just smart, he was purposeful. After excelling in primary and secondary school, he was admitted to the University of Ouagadougou, where he studied geology. While there, he displayed strong organizational skills, becoming active in student movements. His time at the university would prove transformational. During his years as a student, Burkina Faso's political scene was boiling. President Blaise Compaoré, who had seized power in a 1987 coup, faced increasing unrest. University students like Traoré were among the loudest voices calling for change. They demanded education reform, fair governance, and economic opportunities. Ibrahim soon joined the Association of Muslim Students, where he found a platform to engage in both academic and ethical discourse. He became known for his calm demeanor, leadership skills, and principled stance on injustice. He began speaking at rallies, not with inflammatory rhetoric, but with reasoned appeals rooted in national pride and collective duty. Traoré's academic achievements in geology were impressive, but his real education came through activism. He saw how student leaders were harassed, how voices were silenced, and how young people were manipulated by political forces. This period awakened his sense of duty. not just to succeed for himself, but to serve his people. Beyond the classroom, Traoré engaged in community development activities, tutoring younger students and volunteering during local health drives. His well-rounded personality and discipline won him the respect of his professors and peers. He believed that true leadership was not about popularity, but principle. The seeds of a national vision were already taking root in his character. From rocks to rifles, military ascent. Despite his studies in geology, Ibrahim Traoré chose a different path. He joined the Burkinabe Armed Forces. His enrollment wasn't just a career pivot. It was a decision driven by a deep desire to serve, protect, and restore dignity to his nation. In 2009, Traoré joined the military and quickly proved himself a disciplined and principled officer. Rising through the ranks, he became known for three things: integrity, refusing bribes and corruption; strategy, often proposing effective, low-cost ways to secure high-risk areas; empathy. He connected with civilians and soldiers alike. Training included both local and international programs. Traoré was part of UN peacekeeping missions, notably in Mali, where Burkina Faso contributed troops. These international experiences gave him critical exposure to modern warfare, counterinsurgency strategies, and regional geopolitics. He also participated in special forces training and regional command leadership programs that honed his tactical abilities. His performance in the field was exemplary, marked by discipline and initiative. One of his commanding officers reportedly called him the Quiet Storm, a nickname that captured his understated yet powerful leadership style. By 2020, he had achieved the rank of captain and was deployed in the northwestern town of Kaya, where he led anti-terror operations. His leadership style was direct and inclusive. He didn't bark orders from a desk. He shared meals with soldiers, slept on the ground, and fought alongside them. This earned him immense respect, not just in the barracks, but in the villages too. People began whispering his name as a soldier of the people, someone who could lead not through fear, but through conviction. It was in these rough terrains and forgotten towns that Ibrahim Traoré began laying the foundations of his future leadership. His reports from the field often included proposals to secure schools, protect farmers during harvest, and provide basic medical care. His holistic approach to security was rare. He didn't just see enemies to fight, but lives to protect. His ability to win hearts and minds, even under fire, positioned him as a leader whose legitimacy came not from rank, but from results. Coup d'etat. The young captain takes charge on September 30, 2022. Burkina Faso woke up to shock. A coup d'etat, the second in just 8 months, had taken place. But this one was different. Leading it was not a general or a political heavyweight, but 34-year-old Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the youngest African head of state at the time. The previous junta, led by Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, had promised to restore security but failed. Frustration boiled over, particularly among lower-ranking officers like Traoré, who saw firsthand how the fight against terrorism was being mismanaged. With widespread civilian support, especially from the youth, Traoré and his comrades took over. There was little bloodshed, and many citizens even marched in support. Protesters held signs reading, "Captain Traoré, our hope," and "The people support the army." But taking power was only the beginning. Immediately, Traoré issued bold statements. "We will not sell our country. We will reclaim our sovereignty. Our enemies are not only the terrorists, but also the systems that allowed them to flourish." He suspended the constitution temporarily, promised to hold elections in due time, and cracked down on internal corruption. He dismissed ineffective governors and reshuffled military leadership to ensure loyalty and efficiency. But most significantly, he cut military ties with France. Traoré's coup was not simply about taking power. It was about reclaiming purpose. He spoke not as a tyrant, but as a steward of national dignity. In the months following the coup, he established forums to engage with civil society, youth leaders, and rural elders, creating a new social contract based on security, sovereignty, and service. He also instituted mandatory ethics training within military academies, and opened investigations into military procurement fraud. Transparency and accountability became rallying cries under his watch. His young government formed alliances with grassroots organizations and prioritized rebuilding trust through regular public addresses and town halls. Sovereignty and struggle, breaking with France, embracing Pan-Africanism, one of Traoré's most controversial and historic moves was demanding the withdrawal of French troops from Burkinabe soil. For decades, France had maintained military and political influence in its former colonies. But many Burkinabe believed French forces were either ineffective or complicit in prolonging instability. Ibrahim Traoré echoed this sentiment. In early 2023, he gave France 1 month to vacate its military base in Ouagadougou. The French complied, but tensions rose. Western media painted him as a rebel leader, while African youth saw him as a revolutionary. At the same time, Traoré deepened ties with Mali and Guinea, 2 other West African nations also ruled by transitional military governments. Together, they began to envision an alternative West African alliance, free from the dominance of EU, ECOWAS, France, and external influence. Traoré also advocated for economic sovereignty, calling for Burkina Faso to move away from the CFA franc, a currency tied to France, and toward local currency or a Pan-African alternative. He delivered fiery speeches, sometimes in military uniform, often without notes, invoking the spirit of Thomas Sankara, the Yayadi, martyred revolutionary who ruled Burkina Faso in the 1980s. To Traoré, Sankara wasn't just history. He was a blueprint. Like Sankara, Traoré emphasized self-reliance, women's empowerment, and land reform. He launched a national agricultural drive to combat dependency on imported food. Schools were tasked with teaching patriotic values. The Bivam media, once dominated by foreign interests, began featuring Burkinabe voices and stories. Yet these moves came at a cost. Western nations reduced aid, sanctions loomed, but Traoré stood firm. "They can take away their money," he said, "but they cannot take our dignity." He also launched diplomatic missions to countries like Russia, Turkey, and Iran to diversify alliances. His administration began exploring alternative trade partnerships and localizing production. Pan-African think tanks praised his approach as a case study in modern-day liberation strategy. The road ahead, trials, vision, and the making of a legacy. As of 2025, Ibrahim Traoré remains a transitional leader. Elections are still pending. Critics question whether he will keep his promise to step aside or follow the path of so many African leaders who held on to power indefinitely. But for now, his popularity, particularly among youth, students, and rural communities, remains high. He has reorganized the national defense strategy, empowered local self-defense groups called VDPs, Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, started agricultural programs to improve food sovereignty, pushed anti-corruption reforms in government offices. Still, challenges abound. Terrorist groups remain active. Burkina Faso's economy is fragile. The country faces isolation from Western donors, and rumors swirl about internal divisions within the military. Yet Traoré pushes forward. He is often seen visiting frontline regions, holding public forums with villagers, and listening more than he speaks. His vision: a sovereign Burkina Faso, free from dependency, driven by self-sufficiency and national pride. He once said, "Our future will not be written in Paris or Washington. It will be written in Ouagadougou by Burkinabe hands." Traoré is also investing in education and healthcare, building more clinics and schools in rural areas. He has invited African historians and thought leaders to contribute to a new national curriculum, one that celebrates African history, not just colonial narratives. He has also begun talks with other African nations to establish a youth leadership exchange program. For many Africans watching across the continent, Ibrahim Traoré represents something bigger than Burkina Faso. He's a symbol of youth-taking charge, of resistance against neo-colonialism, and of hope in the face of chaos. His administration has initiated national dialogues on constitutional reform, decentralization, and digital literacy, with input from academics, village chiefs, and diaspora communities. Traoré hopes to create an inclusive governance model. Whether or not he contests future elections, he has already reshaped what is possible in African politics. Ibrahim Traoré's story is still being written. Will he deliver on his promises? Will he hold democratic elections and step aside when the time comes? Or will he become the very thing he fought against? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear. In a world where many leaders are born into privilege, power, or nepotism, Ibrahim Traoré rose from the dust of Bondokui with nothing but conviction, courage, and the will to serve. Whether he succeeds or fails, his emergence marks a turning point in West African politics and in the hearts of a generation tired of waiting for change. And in the quiet moments between speeches and strategy sessions, one imagines him returning to the soil of Bondokui, the place where his journey began. Because for Traoré, leadership is not a destination. It is a duty, a burden, and above all, a promise made to his people.